Major League Baseball has finally released their top 100 prospects, and you know me, I gotta go dive into it. So, we're gonna take a look at each prospect in the top 100, and I'm gonna give you my thoughts on their ranking. Let's get to it. And if you are new to the channel, think about subscribing down below. We're trying to get to 50K by opening day. At number 100, we got Jacob Misarowski. They did drop him on this year's list. He was at number 80 last year, but because there is a little bit of reliever risk with him, he has trouble throwing strikes. I'm guessing that's why they dropped him here, but the stuff is off the charts. The velo is fantastic. To me, I think he should be up higher on this list. At 99, we got Theo Gillen. I was high on him coming out of this year's draft. Very good hitter out of high school, but there is a bit of a question mark on whether or not he's going to play shortstop or second base. He had to get shoulder surgery at one point. A very small sample size in the minor leagues so far. I personally don't think he should be in the top 100, at least as of right now. At 98, we got Michael Arroyo. I feel like he's a little low here. He put up some very good numbers last year in the minor leagues. Had a 909 OPS overall in A-ball and high A-ball. I think you should probably bump him up a couple of spots here. At 97, we got Jefferson Rojas in the Cubs system. Not a great year in the minors last year, a 646 OPS. Only had a 742 back in 2023. I don't think you should be on this list right now. At 96, we got Johnny Farmelo in the Mariners system. Was having a good year in the minor leagues before he tore his ACL. Had an 819 OPS over 46 games. Now, Farmelo, very athletic, has a 65 run tool. Needs to get that power going a little bit over the 46 games. Only had 4 home runs, but I think this is a good spot for now. In 95, we got a newcomer, Briseño, in the Tigers system. Now, taking a look at the numbers here, this is a big guy, 6'4", 200 pounds, good hit tool at 55, power tool at a 60, but the numbers weren't all that great this past year. Hit 278, a 758 on the OPS. He does have a good on base at 381. I just feel like there should have been a bit more offensive production for him to be in the top 100, but my guess is they're looking at the projection here. In 94, we got Trey Morgan in the Rays system. Now, taking a look at the numbers here, he had a very good year this past year. Hit 324 with an 891 OPS. Not a lot of power. They only give him a 40 grade there, but a very good hit tool at 60. A very disciplined hitter with a 408 on base. So I guess that's okay, considering he has a 40 power tool, but also has speed. 20 stolen bases this past year. I'm cool with him being in this spot. On to Eduardo Tate in the Phillies system. Had a very solid year at the plate this past year between rookie ball and A-ball. Hit 302 with an 842 OPS. Not a lot of power as of right now, 11 home runs. Now, when it comes to Eduardo Tate, the defense is still a bit of a work in progress. Only a 45 on the field grade. Has a good arm, though. I wouldn't be surprised to see him move up higher here, considering catchers are very scarce. We got Edwin Arroyo at number 92. I feel like he's been one of these top prospects for a while now, just hasn't been able to fully break through. Had some injuries this past year, missed all of 2024, and back in 2023 had a 757 OPS. Now, he's very good defensively, but I don't think he should be in the top 100 right now. The numbers at the plate weren't all that great back in 2023, and he missed all of this past year. In 91, we got Cam Collier. Now, he was drafted a few years ago back in 2022 by the Reds. Had some pretty decent numbers this past year, a 798 on the OPS. Had a good amount of pop, 20 home runs as well. It seems like the Reds are taking their time with him, so I'm okay with him being at number 91, but I think he's going to need to take a big step forward this year. Closing out the 90s, we got Kevin Alcantara in the Cubs system. This guy's massive, 6'6", just under 200 pounds as of right now. I would like for this guy to eat a couple of burgers, maybe some whole milk, get a little bit of muscle on that frame, but Kevin Alcantara did have a cup of coffee this past year with the Cubs over 3 games, but this past year, a pretty balanced year at the plate. Hit 278, a 781 OPS, 14 homers, 14 stolen bases. I think this is a good spot for him. Into the 80s we go. We got Cam Caminiti, very good pitching prospect out of high school this past year. He was projected as the top pitcher coming out of high school in this year's draft. Ended up falling down into the 20s. What a great spot, landing with the Braves. Now, not really much to look at as of right now. Had 1 appearance this past year, 3 innings pitched at A-ball, but there is a lot of upside with Caminiti. Good velo, good stuff at a very young age. So I think this is fine for now. We got Trey Savage at 88 out of the Blue Jays system. Very balanced pitching prospect. Just got drafted this past year out of East Carolina. I like Trey Savage a lot. More of a high floor, in my opinion. I think he's going to end up being a pretty decent middle of the rotation kind of a guy. Has a good fastball, good slider, good splitter as well. I'm cool with him in this spot. At 87, we got Arjun Nimala in the Blue Jays system. Right now, I think there's more projection with him. Now, he did have a very good slugging percentage this past past year, 482 between rookie ball and A ball. Had a good amount of pop as well, 17 home runs, but he strikes out a lot, 120 Ks overall. He's going to have to work on that. Personally, I wouldn't have him in the top 100 as of right now. I'd say he's on the outside just looking in. And then we got a newcomer at 86, Carter Jensen, catching prospect for the Royals. First time on this list. Had himself a pretty solid year this past year in the minor leagues between high A ball and double A. Had an 809 OPS overall. Has a pretty balanced scouting report. 50 hit, 55 on the power. Looks pretty good defensively as well. Could be an under-the-radar catching prospect moving forward. At 85, we got Noble Meyer. The Marlins drafted him 10th overall a couple of years ago. Has good projection, 6'5", has good velo, has good stuff. Just needs to work on the control. ERA to 4.01 this past year, and he had 55 walks compared to the 85 strikeouts. He needs to clean that up. Honestly, I would put Jacob Misarowski ahead of him as of right now. At 84, we got Sal Stewart. This guy's been an on-base menace in the minor leagues up to this point. Has over a 390 on-base percentage in the minor leagues so far. Needs to get the pop going a little bit. Only 8 home runs this past year. He did miss a little bit of time. Only 80 games played overall this past year. But Sal Stewart, I definitely think with how much he gets on base, I think he could end up being a really solid player. Rounding out the 80s, we got Tamar Johnson at 83. Now, this guy's an on-base menace, has a career 390 on base in the minor leagues, but he just needs to get the overall production going. Only had a 386 on the slugging this past year. This is going to be a big year for him to really put it all together to stay in the top 100. Tyron Lorenzo, remember he went back to the Tigers in the Jack Flaherty trade. When he went to the Tigers after that trade, this guy just started to mash, had an OPS over 1,000, a lot of power upside with him. I'm good with him at that spot. Starlin Caba, he just got moved in the Jesus Luzardo trade. Not really a offense so far. Still very young. International signing not too long ago. Very good defensively. Has good speed, but need to see a bit more with the bat going forward. But he could potentially be a very good shortstop down the road if he gets that bat going. And then Thomas Harrington at 80. Now, with Harrington, very good numbers this past year in the Pirates system. Man, they're just churning out pitching prospects. But ERA to 2.61 over 22 games. He's got 3 good pitches that he works with. Good velo, good slider, good splitter, throws a lot of strikes as well. I think for the most part, these 4 guys that I just mentioned, I'm okay with them in this spot. We got a few more pitchers going into the 70s. We got Jarlin Susana at 79. Remember, the Nationals got him back in the Juan Soto trade a couple of years ago. This guy has excellent velocity, a 75 grade on the velo, has a wicked slider as well. This guy had a lot of strikeouts this past year. Over 103 and 2/3 innings pitched. He had 157 strikeouts. Now, control has been an issue with him in the past. So there has been some reliever risk with him. But overall this year, sure, ERA was at a 4.34, but much better than what we saw the year prior. So I think Susana, there is a lot of upside there, especially if he can get a third pitch going. He could definitely be an impact guy. We got Caden Dana at 78 in the Angels system. I would say just a pretty well-rounded pitching prospect. Has a 55 fastball, has a good slider to go along with it. Probably needs to get the curveball changeup going a little bit more, but overall, the numbers were solid this past year, a 2.52 on the ERA. Then we got Tink Hence at 77. Honestly, I think he should be a bit higher on this list. Not really a whole lot of weaknesses with Tink Hence. Good fastball velo, 60 grade overall, and has a very good changeup. One of the best changeups in all of minor league baseball, a 70 grade. Has the 55 slider to go along with it. Very good numbers in the minors this year, a 2.71 ERA over 20 starts. Like I said, I think you should be up higher here. Got a few position players up next. We got Franklin Arias making his top 100 debut out of the Red Sox system. This guy had a breakout year in the minor leagues. Very good scouting report, 55 on the hit tool, good defensively as well. But take a look at the numbers that he posted this past year. Hit 309 with an 896 OPS. Needs a little bit more pop, 9 homers, but very fast, 35 stolen bases overall. We got Zahir Hope at 75. Now, Zahir Hope, man, there's a lot of projection with his bat out of the Dodgers system. Hit 290 with a 903 on the OPS. Still needs to get that pop going a little bit as well. 9 home runs this past year, but he walks a good amount compared to the strikeouts. 41 walks versus 62 Ks. And then we got Felnine Celestin out of the Mariners system. I mean, not a whole lot of sample size right now, but my goodness, these numbers were off the charts. In rookie ball, hit 352 with a 999 OPS over 32 games, 3 home runs. But overall, this guy has a lot of projection. Taking a look at the scouting report, a 55 hit at only 19 years old. So I'm going to see him probably growing more into that frame. I'm okay with these three guys in this spot. Personally, because of the sample size, I would put Celestin a little lower here. I would even put Zaire Hope even a little higher because these numbers were very good over 61 games between rookie ball and A ball. So I'd give him a little bit of a bump there. Franklin Arias, I'm okay with him in this spot. Got a couple more position players here. We got James Triantos at 73. He's been moving along very well in the minor leagues between AA and AAA this past year. He hit 300 with a 346 on base, a 427 on the slugging. Not a whole lot of power, 7 home runs this past year, but very fast, 47 stolen bases. So a guy with a good hit tool, good speed. He can move around defensively as well, can play some second base. They were trying him out in center field a little bit this year. I think that probably holds him back a little bit because of the question mark defensively long term, but overall a very good hitter. Alex Freeland at 72. I like Alex Freeland a lot. Just a good, solid shortstop prospect all the way around. Very balanced scouting report, and he had a good year in the minors, hit 260, a 387 on base. I love a guy that just has great plate discipline. Also has a 442 on the slugging this past year, 18 home runs, 31 stolen bases. So just a well-rounded shortstop prospect. Because of that, honestly, and with the positional value at shortstop, I would put him a lot higher on this list personally. Couple of pitching prospects rounding out the 70s. You got Jackson Ferris at 71. Remember, the Dodgers got him back in the Michael Busch trade. This guy has been very good. Highly projectable frame, 6'4", ERA at a 3.20, over 27 starts this past year. Good fastball, good slider, good curveball to go along with it as well. I think you can make the argument he could be up a little higher on this list. And we got Travis Sikora. Remember, he made his debut into the top 100 not too long ago. Also a highly projectable frame, 6'6". Not a lot of sample size, only 1 year, 20 starts, but very good numbers. ERA at a 2.33, had 129 strikeouts compared to 27 walks. Very good numbers. I think you could even bump him higher on this list as well. We got a string of position players going into the 60s. We got Moises Ballesteros at 69, a very good hitter, very good year in the minor leagues this year between AA and AAA. Hit 289 with an 825 OPS, 19 home runs. Now, there is a question mark defensively where he's going to be long term. Not the greatest catcher, could end up at first base at some point, but a lot of upside with the bat. Speaking of upside with the bat, you got Christian Moore at 68. I am very excited for Christian Moore. This guy absolutely dominated in the College World Series at Tennessee last year. And my goodness, 25 games, not a whole lot of sample size, but holy cow, this guy was off the charts. Hit 347 and 984 OPS over that time with 6 homers. Christian Moore, I think this guy is going to flat out rake. I'd probably put him a little higher on this list. We got Braden Taylor at 67. I'd say one of the more quiet names on this list. He was pretty decent this past year. Hit 250, 858 on the OPS. He's got some pop as well, 20 homers, and he's got some speed, 29 on the stolen bases. I think he's going to be a solid player. Now you got Edgar Quero at 66. Now, that's going to be interesting moving forward because the White Sox also acquired Kyle Teel. So I would think Kyle Teel is going to be the long-term catcher. So what happens with Edgar Quero? Does he go to a corner outfield spot, maybe first base, whatever it is? But overall, this guy has been very solid with the bat this past year. Hit 280 with an 829 on the OPS, 16 home runs. So whatever it may be defensively, I think there is upside there with the bat. And then at 65, we got catching prospect Harry Ford, but not a usual catching prospect. Very athletic for a catcher. Has a 60 on the run tool. And then taking a look at the stolen bases this past year, 35 stolen bases. Now, the problem with Ford is the bat. Only hit 249 this past year. A 377 on base is very good, but only a 367 on the slugging. Personally, because of that, and despite the athleticism that he does have, I would put him lower on this list. Finishing off the 60s, we got a few more position players here. We got Justin Crawford at 64. I really like Justin Crawford a lot. The son of Carl Crawford. No surprise that he also has a ton of athleticism. Could be an everyday future center fielder down the road. Hit 313 this past year. Had an 804 OPS at 42 stolen bases. Would like to see a bit more pop there, but either way, I think he's going to be a very good offensive player for the Phillies down the road. You got Drake Baldwin at 63. I think just a good, solid catching prospect. Hit 276 this past year. A 370 on base, 423 on the slugging. A good amount of pop, 16 home runs over the 124 games this past year. He's good defensively. I think Drake Baldwin is in a good spot here. You got Angel Janau. Now, with him, a very good year at the plate. Hit 330 with an 878 OPS. 10 homers, 25 stolen bases, a lot of offensive upside with him, but I just wonder what the ceiling is, considering he is 5'9". But either way, he's showing a lot of good production with the bat, and he's good defensively, so I think that's a good spot for him as well. You got Luke Keeschel, who I think is more of a high floor guy. I mean, this guy with the bat is so good. Hit 303, a 420 on base, a 483 on the slugging, 15 homers, 23 stolen bases. Just a well-rounded position player prospect. He can move around in the infield, the outfield as well. I do think there is more floor there, but either way, very good prospect. And you got Jason Chourio, brother of Jackson Chourio, at 60. A lot of ceiling with Chourio here. Now, this past year, hit 269, had a 398 on the slugging. Needs to get that going a little bit, but a 414 on base. Only had 5 home runs this past year, but the athleticism is real. 44 stolen bases this past year. But getting back to the ceiling, he's only 19 years old. Now, I do think he is going to develop more power. Let's see how much more, but either way, there is a lot to be excited about with Chourio. Into the 50s we go. We got Cam Smith at 59. Remember, the Astros just got Smith back in the Kyle Tucker trade. I think that was a very good get for them. I think Smith is going to be one of the next better power hitters in the game eventually. This guy is huge, 6'3", over 220 pounds, a 55 hit, 55 power, and he also got all the way to Double-A in his first year of pro ball. Over 32 games, had an OPS over 1,000, had 7 home runs during that time. I think this guy is going to absolutely mash, just like he did at Florida State. Jet Williams at 58. He did miss a lot of time this past year due to injury, only 33 games played overall, but back in 2023 had an 876 OPS. Very good blend of just everything. He's a good hitter, has some pop as well, very fast, very athletic. He can play multiple positions, shortstop, center field, whatever it may be. I really like Jet Williams. It was a bit of a downer to see him miss a lot of time this past year, but I think a very talented player. You got Cooper Pratt at 57. Cooper Pratt, I think, is another one of these quiet names on this list, but he had a very good year in the minors at 277. Very good on base percentage at 362. You'd like that slugging to go up a little bit, only 406. Still needs to get the power going, only 8 home runs this past year, but very athletic. 27 stolen bases this past year. Should be a solid shortstop down the road. You got Jesus Made at 56. I mean, my goodness, 51 games. This guy put on a show this past year in rookie ball. Hit 331 OPS, over 1,000, 6 homers and 28 stolen bases to go along with it. He's still only 17 years old. The fact that you're seeing these kind of numbers at that young of an age and this kind of a scouting report, there is a lot of projection here. And Brady Montgomery, another guy from the college scene this past year that got drafted, also got moved to the White Sox in the Garrett Crochet trade. He did get hurt in the College World Series, so you haven't seen him play yet. He had a fractured ankle, but there is a lot of upside from the left side of the plate with Brady Montgomery. Scouts loved him in college this past year. Has a lot of power upside, 60 power, a very good arm out in right field. Very excited to see what Brady Montgomery can do. Because of the ankle injury, I think it could be fair to move him lower on this list, but I can also understand his placement here because of the high projection. At 54, we got Owen Casey in the Cubs system. Love the power upside with him as a 60 power grade. This past year at AAA, had a very good year, hit 278 with an 847 OPS overall, 19 homers. Now, where I have some pause are the strikeouts, 156 strikeouts this past year, 164 back in 2023. So I could see some people seeing that and being like, he probably needs to be a little bit lower on this list. I could agree. Maybe he could be in the 60s here, but I do like the power upside with him. You got Bryce Rayner at 53, shortstop prospect, drafted by the Tigers this past year. Hasn't played one game yet in the minor leagues, but there's a lot of upside with him. Good frame, 6'3", good amount of power upside as well. Very good bat speed, exit velo, and gets a lot of comps to Corey Seager with the bat from the left side. Also a very good arm. People were thinking maybe he could have even been a pitcher at some point because of the arm strength he has. He moves around well in the field. I think Bryce Rayner is going to end up being a solid shortstop prospect. I could also see him being a little lower on this list because he hasn't played yet. Back to the Cubs system, we got Cade Horton at 52. I really like Cade Horton when he's healthy. A 60 fastball, a 70 slider to go along with it, 50 on the curveball, 45 on the changeup. Throws a lot of strikes, 55 control grade overall. Now, he did miss some time this past year with a shoulder injury, only 9 starts, ERA at a 4.46. But Cade Horton, if he can stay healthy, I think there's potential for him to maybe even make an impact with the Cubs this coming year. You get Xavier Isaac at 51. Very similar problem with Owen Casey. A lot of strikeouts with him, but the power is real. This past year hit 264, a 370 on base, a 480 on the slugging, 18 homers, but like I said, 145 strikeouts. Now, I would actually have Owen Casey ahead of Xavier Isaac at this point, because the problem with Isaac is he's really just the first baseman at this point, not really a whole lot of athleticism, whereas with Casey, it looks like he could be a very solid corner outfield prospect. So that's where I would go. I'd probably put Casey higher than Isaac at this point. And finishing off the 50s, we got Alejandro Rosario in the Rangers system. Very solid pitching prospect that's risen a lot this past year. Good fastball velo, graded at a 60. He's got a splitter and a slider to go along with it. Throws a lot of strikes, keeps the walks at a minimum. Very good year with the numbers this past year. Between A-ball and high A-ball, had a 2.24 ERA over 18 games. Good amount of strikeouts compared to the walks. 129 Ks and only 13 walks overall. Man, this guy exploded onto the scene this past year. But let's get to the next 50. Got a few position players up next. They got Cole Young in the Mariners system at 49. More of a hit first kind of a guy. Not a whole lot of power. Very good defense, though. Can either play second base or shortstop. Wouldn't be surprised to see him help out with the Mariners this year. Not a whole lot of power, like I said, but he hit 271, gets on base very well. 369 on base this past year. At 48, we got Blake Mitchell. Now, when it comes to the overall offensive profile, haven't seen a whole lot yet. Had a 792 OPS this past year. He gets on base very well, 368 on base. You would like to see a bit more pop out of him. Only a 424 on the slugging this past year, but he is solid defensively, has a very good arm. I could see him being lower. Offensively, you do want to see a bit more, but defensively, with Jefferson Cuero, he's potentially the best defensive catcher in all of minor league baseball right now. Has a 70 grade on the field, a pretty average bat for the most part, has a bit of pop. He did miss all of this past year with a shoulder injury, but back in 2023, hit 262, had a 779 on the OPS, had 16 home runs as well. So I would like to see a bit more out of the bat there, but defensively, he is very good. Got a few pictures up next. At 46, you got Brandon Sproat. This guy really shot through the minor league system this past year, 46 overall. A very good mix of pitches here. He's got a fatter changeup and a cutter. Throws a good amount of strikes. The fastball, the slider, and the changeup are the calling card for him. Very good numbers this past year. Over 24 games, a 3.40 ERA. Got all the way to AAA this past year. Excited to see what he can do here in 2025. Quinn Matthews had a very solid season this year in the Cardinals system. 2.76 ERA, 26 games overall. Has a fastball, has a slider, has a changeup. Those are his three go-to pitches. Has a curveball as well. Throws a very good amount of strikes from the left side. Very excited to see what he can do. And speaking of being excited about a guy, finally, we get to see what Kumar Rocker can do. Now, we did see him have a cup of coffee with the Rangers this past year. Had some pretty solid results. But my goodness, the numbers that he put up in the minor leagues this year, very good. A 1.96 ERA, 10 games overall. You know the deal with Kumar Rocker. Good velocity. One of the best sliders in all of minor league baseball. Has a curveball to go along with it. I think he should be up higher on this list. At 43, we got Connor Griffin. He was just drafted 9th overall by the Pirates this past year. Hasn't played a minor league game yet, but the projection is off the charts with this guy. 6'4" at 18 years old. Already has a great frame. Just a good all-around prospect coming out of high school. Very athletic. 65 on the run tool. Very good arm as well. There is a lot of upside with the power there, so I can understand him being in the top 50. But I could also understand the point of view that because he hasn't played in the minor leagues yet, maybe he should be a bit lower. We got Lazaro Montez. Good frame. 6'3". A lot of power from him. 65 on the power grade. Did very well this past year in A-ball. Hit 288, a 397 on base, a 484 on the slugging, 21 homers. Back to the Marlins system, we got Thomas White at 41. He was actually drafted after Noblemeyer, but he's having a lot more success in the minor leagues. Very good velo from the left side with a wicked slider to go along with it. Has a good changeup there too. If he could add a fourth pitch, my goodness, this guy could be very good. Taking a look at the numbers this past year, ERA at a 2.81 over the 21 games. Very good strikeout to walk ratio, 120 strikeouts, 38 walks this past year. I'm excited to see what he can do. Closing out the 40s, we got Josue DePaula. There is a lot of upside here with the bat. Only 19 years old, 6'3", has a 60 hit and a 60 power. When this guy gets into him, my goodness, the exit velocity is off the charts. Now, the numbers were pretty decent this past year. Hit 268 with an 809 OPS. The slugging slugging still needs to come up a little bit, of 405 this past year, but a very disciplined hitter, has a good feel for the strike zone already. Once he grows more to that frame, watch out. This guy is going to be a very special bat. 39, you got Colson Montgomery. Now, he's struggled a lot this past year, but he picked it up in the final month of the year. So really, I'm going to look more at those 2023 numbers when he hit 287 with a 939 OPS overall. He did have 18 home runs this past year. Now, he did deal with some injuries, and maybe he was just trying to work on a couple of things. But like I said, he was better towards the end of the year. This is a good shortstop prospect. He's got a good amount of power there that he can still tap into. He's very good defensively. I'm excited to see what he can do now that he's got himself back on track for 2025. At 38, we got Nick Kurtz, just drafted this past year by the now Sacramento A's, 4th overall. I am very excited about Nick Kurtz. He was honestly one of my favorite prospects coming out of that draft. This guy, I think, is going to be an absolute monster. Really reminds me of Jason Giambi. He just has that size, that power. I mean, look what he did over 12 games this year in his first sample in professional ball. Hit 368 with a 1283 OPS. I'm telling you, look out for this guy. The plate discipline is off the charts. The power is off the charts. Very excited for him. Got a couple outfield prospects up next. You got Emmanuel Rodriguez at 37. Now, he does strike out a decent amount, but the power upside is very real with him. Good bat speed, good exit velo, and a good athlete as well. 55 on the run and a 60 on the arm. Now, he has also been bit by the injury bug. Only played 47 games this past year, but he had very good numbers. Hit 280 with a 1.026 OPS, so hopefully he can stay healthy this coming year. And same thing with Chase DeLauder. He's also been dealing with the injury bug, but when he's healthy, my goodness, this guy can be off the charts. Back in 2023, had a 945 OPS, only played 39 games this year, had an 841 OPS with a 500 on the slugging, 8 home runs over that time. So he also has very good power upside, but these two, they just need to stay healthy. I can see the argument because they have missed a lot of time to be a bit lower on this list, but very good projection with the both of them. Got a couple of recently drafted college pitchers up next. They got Rhett Latter at 35. I was a big fan of him at Wake Forest. Just a guy that goes out there and battles. He's not going to have 100-mile-an-hour stuff, but he's going to have a pretty solid fastball overall. He's not going to have this, wicked slider that's going to make you fall to your knees, but just good, solid movement on it, a good changeup to go along with it, and he throws a lot of strikes. He just pounds the strike zone. Had some pretty solid numbers this past year. ERA to 3.64 in the minors. Had a decent-sized cup of coffee in the majors. 6 starts, a 1.17 ERA. You got Hagen Smith at 34, just drafted out of Arkansas. Had a few starts in the minor leagues, a 3.52 ERA there. Very good velo from the left side, a very good slider to go along with it. Does have a splitter. You'd like to see a bit more of an established third pitch with him, but I'm okay with these two spots for these guys. Up next, they got a couple of catchers. They got Ethan Salas at 33, very young, only 18 years old, for crying out loud. This guy could be a superstar down the road. Now, with the bat this past year, he did have a lot of struggles, only had a 599 OPS. Now, he did make some adjustments mechanically this past year, which did lead to some better quality contact. Let's see if he can keep that going into 2025. But what scouts rave about with him is how advanced he is at such a young age. Very good defensively, has a good IQ for the game. He's good at receiving back there, has a good arm, works well with the pitchers, and he's only 18 years old. So if he can just get that bat going, there is a lot of ceiling here. Kyle Teal at number 32 just got traded to the White Sox in the Garrett Crochet trade. I'm a big fan of Kyle Teal. I think he's going to be a very successful catcher in the majors. Has a very good bat. This guy's been tearing it up in the minor leagues ever since he got there. Had a 977 OPS in a small sample in 2023. Had an 819 OPS over 112 games this past year while hitting 288. Gets on base very well. Has a little bit of pop as well. Defensively, they do give him a 50 grade. Now, he is a bit inconsistent back there. There's times where he looks great defensively, but then there's times where you're like, oh, what just happened there with Kyle Teal? The arm is pretty solid with him. I think in the end, he's going to be a very solid catcher, more of a high floor kind of a guy. Let's go out west for the next three. We got Jacob Wilson at 31. I'm a big Jacob Wilson guy. Not a whole lot of power, but the name of the game is contact. This guy just hits everything. Has a 70 grade on the hit tool. He only struck out 25 times this past year between the minors and the major leagues. A very high batting average average in the minors this past year. He hit .433, had a 1.141 OPS. He's going to be a solid defender at shortstop. I'm very excited to see what he does in his career. Dalton Rushing at number 30 had a solid year in the minor leagues at .271 with an .896 OPS, 26 homers. Pretty solid plate discipline as well. Very good arm. He could be a catcher, could be a corner outfielder as well. And you got Charlie Condon at number 29. A lot of power with him at the University of Georgia. He was setting records left and right. Got off to a bit of a slow start in the minors this past year. 25 games, only had a .518 OPS, but the guy is just so big. He's 6'6", big arms, and he just creates all this leverage, which leads to a ton of power to all fields. Now, he's just going to have to put it all together, but if he does, man, this guy could be insane, especially at Coors Field. As of right now, though, I would put Dalton Rushing ahead of Charlie Condon. Got a couple of infielders up next. They got Kevin McGonigal at 28. Here's another name that I feel like is flying under the radar on this list. You don't hear his name very much outside of Detroit, but he's a very good hitter. 65 on the hit tool, pretty good athlete as well. 55 on the run, should be a pretty solid defender in the infield. Now, he did miss a bit of time this past year after breaking a bone in his hand, but very good numbers over 74 games at .309, a .401 on base, has a very good feel for the strike zone, makes a lot of contact, and he had a .452 on the slugging. Not a lot of homers, only had 5 homers, but he can get into them for some extra base hits in 2025. Now, Aiden Miller in the Phillies system also had a very solid year this past year, hit .261 with an .812 OPS. Still waiting for that power to come along. Only 11 home runs, but there is a lot of power upside with him. Up next, we got a couple of more recently drafted college pitchers. You got Chase Burns and Chase Dollander. These guys have electric stuff. Chase Burns, I am very excited about him. This guy has high-octane stuff. A 65 fastball, a wicked slider graded at a 70, a 60 curveball, 55 on the changeup as well. Hasn't pitched yet in the minor leagues, but if you saw him at Wake Forest, my goodness, this guy's stuff is off the charts. Now, Chase Dollander, I mean, let's see if this guy could actually be a good pitcher for the Rockies. They haven't had a whole lot of those, but if there's anyone that can do it, it's Chase Dollander. My goodness, at Tennessee, he had very good stuff, but he's taken a big step forward in the Rockies system since getting drafted. A 65 fastball, 60 slider, 55 curveball, 55 on the changeup. Very good numbers this past year in his first full season in the minor leagues. A 2.59 ERA over 23 starts, just under 170 strikeouts over 118 innings pitched. On to 24 with Bryce Eldridge. A lot of power upside with him. This guy is massive. 6'7", over 220 pounds, has a 70 power grade, and the numbers show it. Hit .291 this past year with an .890 OPS, 23 home runs at just 20 years old. Moving on to a couple of guys that were just drafted this past year, J.J. Weatherholt and Jack Caglione. J.J. Weatherholt was regarded as the best pure hitter in this year's draft, was rumored to be going number 1 at one point, but in the end he fell to the Cardinals, and that is an absolute birthday gift. This guy is just such a great hitter. He did a lot of good things at West Virginia. Now, he did suffer through some injuries there, but when he was on the field, this guy just hit, man. Had a small sample this past year. A-ball hit .295, 805 OPS. I think he's going to be a very solid player, and I think he ends up getting to the major leagues pretty quickly. He's that advanced of a player. Jack Caglione, a lot of power upside with him. Like I said, with Bryce Eldridge, a lot of power upside, but Jack Caglione, you can look at him in a very similar light. A big dude, 6'5", 250 pounds. This guy mashed at Florida. He was setting home run records there, has a 70 power grade overall. You know, very small sample this past year, 29 games. I think you could argue maybe he could be a little lower here, but there's a lot of power potential with him. Closing out the 20s, we got Jason Dominguez. I know it feels like he's been on this list for about 93 years now, but there's still a lot of potential with Jason Dominguez, and I know it stunk for the Yankees to lose Juan Soto, but I think a lot of people forget how much upside this guy still has. Only 21 years old, a very good scouting report, very good with the bat. Remember, this guy homered off of Justin Verlander in his first ever major league at-bat, and after coming back from elbow surgery this past year, he hit very well. .314 batting average and .880 OPS overall, had 11 home runs. I think he's going to be the real deal. Very good arm in the outfield as well. You got Cole Emerson rounding out the 20s here. Very good on base percentage this past year, and also in a very small sample size in 2023. He had right around a 500 on base over 24 games that year, and he kept it going this past year. Would like to see a little bit more power. Only a 376 on the slugging, but a very good hitter, very advanced approach at the plate. I think the Mariners are going to have themselves a very good player here. And at number 19, we got Matt Shaw. I am a big Matt Shaw guy. I was hoping for the Red Sox to draft him not too long ago, but in the end, he went to the Cubs. And this guy, I think, could be an opening day player for the Cubs, whether that's at third base, second base, whatever it may be. Also hit very well for Team USA this past offseason, and I think he's going to be just a very good player. Hit 284 and 867 OPS overall, 21 homers this past year. Also very athletic, 31 stolen bases. He's just a dirt dog kind of a player. Reminds me a lot of Dustin Pedroia. At number 18, we get another young but very high upside player in the Padres system, Leotis Vrais, only 18 years old, but had a 361 on base percentage over 75 games at A-ball. Already has a very advanced approach at the plate, has a good hit tool, has some power upside, very athletic as well. Definitely could be a very good shortstop down the road. You got Sebastian Walcott at number 17. Really reminds me of Jazz Chisholm, just a bigger Jazz Chisholm. Good power, very good speed, also has a good arm. He can play on the left side of the infield, maybe even a corner outfield spot at some point. Who knows, maybe even center field. He has the speed out there for that as well. Can get a bit strikeout happy, but the power upside is off the charts with him. At 16 and 15, we got a couple of very good young pitching prospects. Noah Schultz in the White Sox system gets comps to Randy Johnson because this guy is absolutely massive, 6'9", has a very good fastball from the left side, a wicked slider, solid changeup to go along with it, throws a good amount of strikes as well. Very good year this past year, a 2.24 ERA over 23 games, had 115 strikeouts compared to 24 walks. That's an incredible strikeout to walk ratio. Bubba Chandler at 15 in the Pirates system, very good year in the minors this year. ERA at a 3.08 over 23 starts, 26 games, 148 strikeouts compared to 41 walks. Very solid repertoire here. Good velo, a 70 grade on the fastball, has a very good slider changeup. At 14 and 13, we got a couple of Orioles, Kobe Mayo and Sammy Basayo. Kobe Mayo, the power upside is through the roof, has a 70 grade on the power. Didn't do a whole lot with the Orioles this past year, but in the minors, hit 293 with a 964 OPS, 25 home runs. Wouldn't be surprised at all to see him starting at some point this year for the Orioles. And then we got Sammy Basayo at number 13. Also had another very good year this past year, hit 278, a 790 OPS, did drop off a little bit from 2023, but still very good power with him at a very young age. 19 homers this past year after hitting 20 back in 2023. Couple of very good prospects here for the Orioles. And just outside the top 10, we got Marcelo Meyer and Jordan Lawlar. I think Marcelo Meyer is going to be very good. Has had a couple of injuries over the last couple of years, but when he's on the field, he's shown a lot of good things. A very smooth swing from the left side. Just a good balanced bat. Has a 55 hit, a 55 power as well. Some scouts think because he is 6'3", he can end up playing third base at some point, but wherever it may be, shortstop, third base, I think he's going to be a solid defender. He moves well at short, has a good arm for third, so I think he's going to be fine long term. This past year, like I said, did miss some time, only 77 games overall, but he hit 307, a 480 on the slugging, 850 OPS overall. I think he just needs to stay on the field. I think he's going to be a solid player down the road. And when he gets to the majors, which could be this year, you never know with Trevor Story, I think he's going to show a lot of good things. And Jordan Lawlar as well got drafted the same year as Marcelo Meyer. I think just a very good shortstop prospect, does everything well, has dealt with some injuries over the last couple of years, but like Meyer, just a pretty balanced bat overall, 55 hit, 50 power. This past year, played 23 games, had an 899 OPS, but a couple of years ago, back in 2023, he looked very good, hit 278 with an 874 OPS at 20 home runs to go along with it, and very athletic, 36 steals as well. A couple of very good shortstop prospects here that I think you could see this year. At number 10, they decided to go with Travis Bazzana, the number 1 pick from this year's draft. Now, for me personally, I think it's a little too soon to put him into the top 10, but I get it. I think he's going to be very good. He hit very well at Oregon State. I just want to see a bit more of a sample size before you put him in to the top 10, whereas some of these other guys like Noah Schultz, Bubba Chandler, they showed a lot of good things this past year. Even Kobe Mayo, Sammy Basayo, maybe even one of the shortstops I think could have been number 10, but I get it with Bazzana. There's a lot to like. The guy's just an incredible hitter, a very advanced approach, makes a ton of contact, hard contact to all fields, good amount of pop as well, very athletic. He's good defensively at second base. I think he's going to be very good. I don't know if I would have put him in the top 10 right now, though. At number 9, they went with Carson Williams, a very well-rounded, high-upside shortstop prospect in the Rays system. Now, he does strike out a decent amount. This past year, had a lot of strikeouts, 144 overall, 150 158 the year before that, 168 the year before that, but has a good amount of pop, 20 homers this past year, 23 back in 2023. Does get on base despite the strikeouts, had a 352 on base this past year. He is good defensively, is a good athlete. So, despite the strikeouts, I think he's going to be really solid. At number 8, they went with Andrew Painter. Hasn't pitched in a game in a couple of years. Had to get Tommy John. They are taking their time with him coming back, but there is a lot to like with Andrew Painter. Back in 2022, this guy was phenomenal. Had a 1.56 ERA over 22 starts. Had 155 strikeouts compared to 25 walks. My goodness. Incredible velo. A wicked slider to go along with it. Throws a ton of strikes. Has a changeup and a curveball. What is there not to like with Painter? At number 7, they went with Christian Campbell. This guy absolutely exploded this past year. Kind of reminds me of a bigger Mookie Betts, 6'3", but the ball just jumps off this guy's bat. Has a 60 hit, 60 power, very disciplined at the plate, and when he makes contact, it's just hard contact, a very fast and aggressive swing with Christian Campbell. Like I said, kind of reminds me of Mookie Betts, but like I said, he exploded this past year. Look at these numbers. Hit 330, had a 997 OPS, which included a 439 on base. That is incredible. 20 home runs, but very athletic as well. 24 stolen bases. I am very excited to see what Christian Campbell does for the Red Sox, and I wouldn't be surprised if he won a job out of spring training. At number 6, they went with Max Clark, and I don't know if I would have gone with him at number 6, to be completely honest. And honestly, I don't even know if he should be in the top 10. I think some of these other guys just put up some better numbers this past year. Now, not taking anything away from him, I think he's going to be a solid player down the road. But again, I think some of these other guys were more deserving of this spot. Now, is a very good hitter, has a 60 hit tool, not a lot of power as of right now, more of a gaps kind of a guy, but very athletic, has a 70 run, very good arm out there. He's going to be an everyday center fielder down the road. But like I said, I feel like this is a bit high. Now, not a bad season by any means at 279 with a 793 OPS. Not a lot of pop, 9 homers. Did have 29 stolen bases. Again, I feel like he's probably maybe a top 15 prospect. I mean, maybe you could put him at number 10. I don't know. I just feel like this is a bit high. At number 5, they got Jackson Jobe. Very excited about Jackson Jobe, the next highly touted pitching prospect out of the Tigers system. Very good velo, a wicked slider to go along with it. Has a 70 fastball and a 70 slider. My goodness. Also has a plus changeup and a plus cutter to go along with it. Very good numbers in the minor leagues this past year at 2.36 ERA over 21 starts. Even pitched in the postseason, for crying out loud. Jackson Jobe is going to be a stud. At number 4, they got Dylan Cruz, drafted 2nd overall a couple of years ago, just behind Paul Skeens. But I think Dylan Cruz is going to be a great player. Very good bat at LSU. That guy's numbers was off the charts. I think he's going to carry that over to the Nationals here in the major leagues. A 60 hit, 60 power, very athletic, a 70 on the run, very good arm. He's going to be an everyday star in center field. Had a cup of coffee this past year with the Nationals. Didn't do a whole lot, but was solid this past year in the minors at 270 with a 793 OPS, 13 homers, 25 stolen bases. I think it's just a matter of time before this guy's putting up solid numbers. At number 3, they went with Walker Jenkins. I like this spot a lot. I think Walker Jenkins is going to be a monster at some point. Still only 19 years old, but has a big frame, 6'3", gets a lot of comps to Josh Hamilton because they have very similar builds. And I'm going to be honest, I think he could put up numbers like Josh Hamilton. This guy is off the charts so far in the minor leagues. At 282 this past year, did get all the way to AA, only played a few games there, but throughout A-ball, this guy was raking. Hit 282, had an 833 OPS, had a 394 on the on base. He struck out 47 times, but walked 56 times. My goodness. I mean, this guy, I think, is going to be so good. Once he just grows into his frame a little bit more, that power is only going to get better. He's also very athletic, 17 stolen bases as well. Just a good swing from the left side, makes incredibly hard contact. Like you saw with the plate discipline, it's off the charts. I think he's going to be a very good player. I can't wait to see what he does this year. At number 2, they got Roman Anthony. There's a reason he's not number 1. We'll talk about him in just a second, but Roman Anthony, I think, is also going to be off the charts. Wouldn't be surprised to see him in the major leagues this year, contributing to the Red Sox. And that's not even Giraffe Neck Robbie talking. If you go take a look at the highlights and what this guy's been doing in the minor leagues, I think he's going to be a great player. Gets a lot of comps to JD Drew. Now, I know a lot of people might be thinking, oh, JD Drew, I mean, he was okay. Well, no, JD Drew, when he came out of Florida State and he went into the major leagues, there was a lot of promise with him. He was regarded as the next best player in Major League Baseball. Roman Anthony, very similar, very sturdy, quick swing, very quick hands, makes a ton of good contact. The exit velocity is off the charts with the guy. It's kind of like this hidden power where he's not, like a massive hulking kind of a guy, but the way the ball jumps off the bat, it's just incredible with him. Very disciplined hitter at the plate this past year too. He's going to get the job done in the outfield. Take a look at the numbers here. Hit 291, had an 894 OPS, 18 homers, 21 stolen bases, and still only 20 years old. I can't wait to see Roman Anthony at Fenway Park. And at number 1, they got Roki Sasaki, who just signed with the Dodgers. And hey, Roki Sasaki, this guy is incredible. Still only 23 years old. The stuff is off the charts with this guy. Velo, always in the hundreds, a nasty splitter to go along with it, has an 80 grade on the splitter, has a wicked slider to go along with it, throws a ton of strikes. This guy's the real deal. I could also understand some people thinking that since he's already so good while coming over from pro ball in Japan, that he shouldn't be a prospect, but I also understand the other side of the coin, that since he's only eligible for a minor league contract, that technically makes him a prospect like Ohtani and Ichiro were before. But everyone, tell me what you think of the most updated top 100 list. Would any of these guys would have gone lower for you, higher? Do you think there's any snubs in here that got left off the top 100? Let me know down below in the comments. But everyone, that's all I got for right now. If you can on the way out, hit that like button for me. Subscribe if you're new. We're trying to get to 50K by opening day. But with that said, I'll talk to you next time.